Watching this Judiciary Committee makes one want to vomit. And the mainstream media news around it is every bit as bad. It is absolutely crazy. The fact that one side, in this case the Democrats, it's not always this way, but in this case the Democrats have thrown everything under the bus, everything into the fire, everything into the wind in order to get some kind of predictable result. Part of what they want, of course, is to delay the nomination of Kavanaugh enough so that theoretically, if they got a majority in Senate after the first of the year, they'd be able to dictate to President Trump who he could nominate after they'd turned Kavanaugh down. And that would greatly reduce the potential nominees that Trump could suggest could nominate as candidates, because they would have to approach a majority of the Democratic Senate. So that's their first idea. The second idea, of course, and a lot of people miss this, and it's very important to catch it, is that an awful lot of this flailing about this fall has been about how do we position ourselves for the midterms and how do we fit ourselves in to enhance and foment and anger and instill movement in our base. And so the base is both minorities and women. And you can see this in everything they do. So I'm going to go through what I consider to be a rogues gallery of craziness in this Judiciary Committee, a place where one would expect and anticipate that there would be a measure of civility, number one, and number two, that these people would be more august, they would be more serene, they would be more non-judgmental, they would be more referential, they are supposed to be, the Senate itself is supposed to be the body that has the longevity, that sees the big picture, that looks at these things in less of a partisan way, and that is operating in a longer term perspective. And so where do we see that? Well, we don't see it in the Senate right now, and it is sickening. It is vomitful. So we've got Feinstein, who is the Democratic lead person, and this is the person who might well become the chairman of the Judiciary Committee if the Democrats win the Senate. Think of that. Think of the craziness of that. So here's what she did, and I find this fascinating. First of all, she gets this letter in July, and she has it for all of August and September. For more than 6 weeks, she does absolutely nothing with it towards the end of investigating it, looking into it, validating it, confirming it, obtaining objective information about it. I watched an early interview of hers in which she, and this was telling, this was body language stuff. She said, well, I have this and I withheld it and then I'm not sure that it's true. And so she dropped her head as she said it. Pay attention. Why did she do that? Because she knew damn well it was not authentic. She knew that it was a, what do they call it, a faggot on the fire. I know faggot gets used for other things, but that's the old wood term of throwing a stick on the fire. So she failed to do anything about validating it. She also did not confidentially share it with Grassley, nor did she initiate the process by which the FBI would have looked into it. So she failed to do all of that as it relates to properly engaging the system, and she had 6 weeks before the hearing, or most of 6 weeks before the hearing, to have done that. So now she comes in and says, oh, we need longer, we need more comprehensive review, we need to have more investigation. We didn't allow enough time. This 1 week FBI investigation that we thought would be okay a week ago has not been long enough, and yet she's the one, not the Republicans in the Judiciary Committee, not Chuck Grassley. They're not at fault for this. She waited until after the hearings were done. So, did she initiate it at the beginning of the hearings? Did she initiate it when she got it? Did she confidentially share it with Grassley so that they could have properly engaged it? Did she invite Ford as a witness in the initial hearing setup? No, none of the above. So who is to be faulted for it? Well, it's not the Republicans, not this time anyway. So secondly, and then of course she's heavy-handing Murkowski and others and denying that she's the one that leaked this. So not only did she get this information, not only was it confidentially shared with her, she helped set up who the attorneys were going to be. She probably had something to do with the fake polygraph test, which was 2 questions, and if any of you have ever looked at a polygraph test, you know that doesn't even set a baseline for it. It's impossible to set a baseline for a polygraph test if you don't have true and false questions and you cannot meter and measure what it is that the person says in the context of what they would say in other settings. You have no baseline by which to measure their reaction to the question they're being asked. And if in fact this question was asked to her 6 times or 10 times or 17 times and they only recorded the 17th time, it would not give you a valid reading, and it would not give you a valid reading in the background or grounded by or measured by the other questions that could have been asked. And of course now we're learning that not only that, but Blasey Ford had a solid background about polygraphs and had apparently given advice to others about how to take them. So how do you get a valid reading on it at all? What is more than that, and I'll get back on my rogues gallery in a second, what is more than that, there is an indication, a pretty clear indication, that Blasey Ford may well be an MK Ultra candidate, and especially since she has been tied in with the CIA for a generation or more. And not only that, there are indications that they can self-program, and that she may well have done that. In other words, she can set herself up so that a part of her mental capacity, part of her mental process, actually believes what it is she's programmed it to say. Crazy stuff. So then we've got the idiot Blumenthal, all right? And I'm gonna, when I get to the end of this, I mean, obviously we've got Feinstein from California, we got Blumenthal from Connecticut, and I'm going to ask you, as you go through this, if you're from Connecticut, how did these people get there and who the hell would vote for them? Who would vote for them? So there's Richie Blumenthal, 72, former veteran apparently. I guess he's always a veteran. But he said when he was in Vietnam, we didn't do it right. Well, it turns out he wasn't in Vietnam. He was never in Vietnam. So he's got the war hero mentality and he's wrapping himself up in it. It's kind of like Hillary Clinton saying that she was being shot at when she was in Europe, right? She was in, what was it, former Yugoslavia. So Blumenthal is not a war hero. He's a Yale graduate, and this is the scandalous part about this, is that we've got a couple of these people, including, and I'm not going to add her in, Kamala Harris. We've got Harris and Blumenthal that are former attorneys general of California and Connecticut, respectively. How is it that they could proclaim truth of a witness they had not seen, falsity of a witness who had not had an opportunity to respond, a presumption of guilt, casting aspersions on someone without a hearing, and not even looking at the veracity of the testimony or the substantiation for the testimony is a process to follow it. How could they be attorneys general? How would they prosecute dispassionately, honestly, and give the best to their own constituency if they couldn't even take a single person's testimony or witnessing and use it as truth without having even heard it, without even looking this person in the eye? So Blumenthal is a former AG, was the AG in Connecticut for 10 years. Can you imagine an idiot like that being in the AG? So he is established, and a bunch of the rest of them do. Kamala Harris and Gillibrand and maybe Flaky Flake and certainly Booker all establish a presumption of guilt with this guy, and even worse yet when I get to Booker. So then you've got Gillibrand, who is an attorney. She worked in the Boy's office, the guy who defended Clinton, I think, in some matters. She volunteered to help Hillary out in 1999 for her 2000 campaign for president. She gave a bunch of money to it. And of course, she ended up in 2009 when Hillary was going to become the Secretary of State and resigned as the senator from New York. So Gillibrand pulled up on her coattails, allowed everybody in the Clinton campaign, in the New York Clinton campaign, to promote her into the Senate. And so she on the coattails of Hillary Clinton, became the United States Senator from New York. Well, finally in 2016, in order to cover her tracks and in order to appear to have some measure of objectivity, she tossed Bill Clinton under the bus and said that Bill should have resigned as president for his Monica case. Well, frankly, I have to say to you, did I like the Monica thing? No, I didn't. But it is not an impeachable event, nor is it a resignation event. It was a place for cathartic confession, no question about it. And had Clinton been more forthcoming initially and not lied through the process of it, it would have been an embarrassment, but not an impeachment. So we got her. Then we got Flaky Flake, right? Jeffy Flaky Flake, the McCain no-name McStain understudy who'd like to be just like him, the spineless mollusk, the shellless spineless mollusk. I wanted to compare him to an octopus, but octopi are smart. So let's compare him to a slug. That's part of the mollusk family. A shellless, spineless, witless, waffling fool. And so when the Soros-financed rabble accost him in a elevator, and he withers in it and does not respond by saying, hey, look, the truth has to be validated. There has to be some basis of truth in the claim and the complaint, and why should questioning Blasey Ford does not mean I question anybody else in any other sense. But he didn't do that. So then he gets the week. He waffles into the week, and I think the week actually worked well. Not because of Snowflake, Flaky Flake, but just because it showed a responsibility in the timetable and allowing for everything to play out before anybody voted. So, but Flaky Flake would like to be president, and my question to him is, who's going to vote for him? I find this fascinating. Who's going to vote for him? It's not going to be Republicans. It's not going to be Trump folks. It certainly won't be the mainstream part of the Republican Party, which he claims to be of which he proclaims to be a member. And it won't be the Democrats, because he's a half-assed Republican. Just because he is doesn't make him a decent Democrat. And even if he is embraced by the Democrats, half the Democrats won't vote for him, and none of the Republicans will. So I don't know where he gets the idea. This is not nice. His nose is all peeled off to the left, and as a left-hander myself, I could help spread it clear across the left side of his face. That left hook would work perfectly. It looks like he already got it, and I'd love to take credit for it, but no, I can't. I'm way nicer than that. And it's just, we have these dark thoughts, okay? So then there's Booker T, Cory Booker, and I had previously not declared him for the New Jersey guy that he is. He also has a Yale JD. So, and that's part of the walk of shame, right? We've now got the Ivy League universities, and worse yet, the law schools of the Ivy League that are protesting this whole Blasey Ford business because she should be believed. If there is any place in the sanctuary of universities where objectivity and cautious viewing of witnesses ought to be measured and relevant, and hearing all the facts and making a judicially motivated conclusion, if there was any place in all of the university across the country, the Ivy League law schools ought to be the paragon of that. And they are instead the dregs. Why is it that we allow Yale, Harvard, Dartmouth, and the rest of them to bring us these lame, half-witted, brain-drained, pre-programmed fake lawyers that will destroy our constitutional form of government? Why? Why? Let's not do that anymore, okay? But Booker, what a cute little guy he is. Of course, you know, he'd like to take Kavanaugh down for having been a miscreant in high school, either having had drinks that he shouldn't have, or having taken a girl down and what did they say, dry humped her. I don't even think that happened. It was more of a pile-on. They didn't even get they didn't get the snap off of her jeans. Let's get over it here. And I'm not saying that excuses taking somebody down and molesting them. I'm not saying that at all, but it hardly constitutes attempted rape. But Booker has already published that he took advantage of young women when he was that age, and that he actually made his way with them, and that he did so in an untoward fashion, and that he learned the errors of his ways. So why isn't he resigning then? If he's going to hold Kavanaugh to that standard, why isn't he himself resigning? Because we have his confession of it. So, but worse yet, he was in the news yesterday, and he said, well, there are two problems with Kavanaugh. One is what we in the Senate Judiciary Committee and the Senate in proper needs to do is to find and approve the best possible candidate. We need to review this in terms of the best possible candidate. And I'm going to say to you, that is exactly wrong. It is the ignorance, total ignorance about the constitutional process of our government. That we have three branches of government, and Booker T, little Corey, is not the one to decide who gets to be the nominee. Not at all. He can promote somebody, but the person who decides is the president. And all they are there for is advice and consent. And under advice and consent, they have only to say yay or nay. Not, oh no, I want him over here. I want her over here. We don't have enough of this minority group in the bunch. We need somebody that graduated from UCLA. No, that's not it. That's not the way it works. The president nominates, and they either take this person or don't take this person. It's not a matter of Booker, little Cory Booker, deciding. And the second part that little Cory Booker got wrong, and it is pathetic, it is absolutely crazy pathetic, is he said, well, we've got too many allegations about this guy. We need to reject him because we have all of these allegations. And to that I say, you know, you can have 100 allegations against somebody. If they're all false, why would they stick? And what is more than that is from whence, if there's, you know, there's this old saying, if there's smoke, there has to be fire. And the common parlance of that is, if there's a problem with someone and it smokes around them, there are rumors around them, then there must be some basis to it. And therefore you take the person recognizing that there must be something wrong, because underlying that smoke, underlying those implications is a faulty process, a person who's left fires burning. Well, here's the problem with that. Problem with it is, who started the fires? Was it Kavanaugh that started the fires? I don't think so. If people make up claims, and those made up claims have no basis in fact, it's like an arsonist running around lighting fires all around the person's property and then saying, oh look, that guy's a bad guy because he's got smoke and smoldering going around his house. Well, no, if there's an arsonist that is creating the problem, you can't blame the homeowner because the arsonist starts fires, okay? And with Little Booker, if somebody else starts the fires, don't blame the person whose home is being burned down. That's craziness. It's absolutely idiocy. And what is more than that, it is the worst. It is even worse than presuming guilt. Because at least with presuming guilt, you'd say, well, obviously if we're presuming guilt, then there must be something to it. No, this is even worse than that. It is presuming unsuitability for a job on the basis of allegations, no matter whether the allegations have validity or substance to them or not. So if the arsonist starts the fire and you blame the homeowner and there are too many fires around the homeowner's house, even though he had nothing to do with it, you still have to condemn him for the fires that were caused, right? That's, if you follow that logic, you could go to Yale Law School. There you go. So finally, we have the poster child for idiocy. And the poster child, and this goes to the heart of the matter, who would vote for this person? I ask you, Hawaii, who would vote for this person? Mazie Hirono. So, men, pay attention. Everybody that's a man, pay attention. Everybody that has a male child, pay attention. Everybody that has a male brother, pay attention. Everybody that has a male parent, pay attention. Everybody that has an uncle or a cousin or a really good friend or business partner that happens to be male, pay attention. Because what Mazie said was, to all men, not to a few, not to Republicans, not to the people on the Judiciary Committee, but to men. It is about men. Men are the problem. And what she said was, just shut up and step up. Do you know what that means? That means that you have no voice. That means that not only do you have no voice, you're supposed to have no voice. You are supposed to be like, in Alice in Wonderland, you're supposed to be the soldiers, the cards, right? And you're supposed to stand there at attention, mute. You're not supposed to do anything while the Queen of Hearts runs around slapping people and telling them it's off with their heads. No, you're supposed to shut up first. Not speak up and then stand up. You're supposed to shut up first. Don't even step up. Don't give credence to it. Don't support us until you've already shut your mouth. And then you can step up. We'll let you step up after you shut up. And secondly, not only do they need to be heard, as Mazie said it, not only do these accusers, not only do these Me Too claimants need to be heard, which we all agree they do. We need to hear complaints, and we want to encourage and validate as much as we can. We want people not to be abused. But the problem is, and the second part of it is, here's where she goes. And this is her hand thumping down on the podium. They need to be believed. They need to be believed. I believe her. Well, how can you believe every single claimant, no matter who they are? And which is the greater injustice? Certainly, it is a huge injustice for people not to step forward and to have molesters, sexual abusers, criminal traffickers getting by with immunity and impunity. No question about it. But to have false claims like the rugby team got, and to have somebody come in and destroy people's lives, as they're doing with Kavanaugh, where there is apparently no basis for it. The smoke that has been created against Kavanaugh are not fires he created. You can say whatever you like about Kavanaugh, and I have grave misgivings about some of his judgment and his connections in the background, but you cannot fault him for phony, fake, made-up challenges of sexual abuse and misconduct, for which he had no responsibility at all. So the rogues gallery is large, it's extensive, there are other parties that are involved, but in conclusion, let me say to you this, and this applies not only in Connecticut and California and New York and Arizona and New Jersey and elsewhere, but it applies in every state. If you have candidates who say that someone needs to be believed without obtaining the evidence, the background, the solidity of their complaints, the basis for it, the corroboration, the witnesses that would validate those claims, or even utterances that they would have made 30 years ago. If none of those things are present, and yet the person wants you to commit to have these people be believed and is willing to put people out of their job, to charge them with criminal sexual assault, as some of these senators have said, if he gets on the Supreme Court, we want to go to Maryland and we want to have him charged with sexual assault, and we'd like to have him be prosecuted for sexual assault, even though it was 36 years old, it's not validated. We want to continue to hound and bug him and chase him and challenge him, destroy his life, even if the charges are unfounded. We want to follow him. He is a bad guy because there's smoke, and yet the smoke has been created by the Democrats in order to burn him out of his house. It is despicable, it is reprehensible, it is unacceptable, it is the worst of all cases, and it is something that needs to be challenged. And the Republicans, for once, need to step up and say, just because somebody's charged doesn't mean they're guilty. I stand up for the Constitution, and I am willing to look at all charges, but I'm not going to throw somebody in jail. I'm not going to rip him from his job. I'm not going to destroy his life. I'm not going to ruin his family. I'm not going to impugn his lack of integrity on him and tar and feather him with falseness and criminality if there's no basis for the charges. How can we possibly do that? We condemn the Salem witch trials. We condemn the Spanish Inquisition. We condemn some of the stuff that went on in the McCarthy era, where people were charged with being communists and were blackballed as a result of it. We condemn all of that. Why do we not condemn this conduct now? I'm telling you, it is absolutely unthinkable that we in the United States do it. It's unthinkable that people in the United States Senate even conceive of the idea. It is unthinkable that people in the Judiciary Committee will give credence to it. It is unthinkable that people in the Ivy League law schools would condone and patronize and engage and encourage their students who are supposed to be learning the law this kind of travesty of justice at every level. Thank you for watching. If you like it, give a thumbs up. I certainly appreciate the following, and I had fun doing this. Thanks.